Doug, it is great to see you as always. Let's start, Doug, on this Microsoft news that Dan Howley was just highlighting there for us. I'm curious what you make of that, Doug. There has been this political pushback on data centers. There was this journal had a piece not long ago on this, Doug. I don't know if you saw this. And the headline here, the political left is dialing up scrutiny of data centers. They talked about how Bernie Sanders is very focused on high power prices. Is that what this is about, Doug? Is this Microsoft saying, okay, there's this issue bubbling up here, we gotta find a way to address it?
I think it is, Josh, and I think that the data center build out will not stop, nor will the political pressure stop. I think we're going to continue to see over the next several years these tensions come to a head. And I think there will be these types of agreements where these hyperscalers, whether they be Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they come into communities, and obviously they've been building data centers, Amazon in particular, for a very long time with AWS. They've been building these data centers, and I think they know how to deal with communities when they come in. I do think the scrutiny will continue to increase, but I think the AI train is just so hard to stop right now. I don't know that there's a ton of political ability or even willingness really to stop America being the AI power ahead of other rivals around the world.
Well, let's stick with Microsoft, Doug, because their president, Brad Smith, made some news with the FT. I want to get your take on this as well. China is winning the AI race outside of the West. Saying we have to recognize that right now, unlike a year ago, China has an open source model and increasingly more than one that is competitive. They benefit, he goes on to say here, from government subsidies, he says, allows them to undercut American companies based on price. I'm just curious what you make of that commentary, Doug. Do you see this sort of Chinese AI momentum he's talking about?
I think everything that Brad Smith said is true. You really have two players. It's a tale of two players in the AI race. In America, we lead, I would say, AI in aggregate, really on the frontier. So closed source models, whether they be from OpenAI, from Google, from Anthropic, xAI, those are the four big players we have, and they all have incredible models. I would say that they are a little bit ahead to a lot ahead of the open source models, where China is very competent. And that's going to be, I think, a big part of the race over the next several years between the two countries. The other thing, besides just thinking about the two dynamics of closed source versus open source models and how they get funded, private industry in the US, government help in many cases with China, I think one of the big questions will be back to infrastructure where you started, Josh, because the other thing that China has that I think is kind of an advantage relative to the US is much more willingness to build infrastructure, and in particular, dirty infrastructure, right? I mean, they don't have the same level of concern around how's the power generated to get data centers online and powered. They just say, get it done, right? And they've also been building nuclear power plants for the last several years, where in the US, we haven't built one in several years. And so I think we need to catch up there on that front.
Let's stick with China, all things AI. This report from The Information today, Doug, I want your take on that too, how the Chinese government this week telling some tech companies it would only approve their purchases of Nvidia's H200 AI chips under special circumstances, such as for university research, for example. You saw that headline. What do you think?
Yeah, this is probably going to be something that continues to get negotiated for months on end here. I mean, I think we've been talking about NVIDIA coming back to China now for the better part of the last 6 months. And now it's kind of the ball is in the court of China where, what will they allow companies to do? I think the bottom line, though, is this, Josh. At some point, NVIDIA chips will return to China. That will be a tailwind for NVIDIA because nothing's really priced into the stock right now, in my opinion, for China. I think investors have just totally written it off. And I think the question will be, how will these regulations be structured in a way that China looks good to their constituents, but also allows them to get access to the chips that they need to continue to build these open source models and compete with the US, as we were just talking about.
With NVIDIA, Doug, what do you make of the price action there? I mean, I'm just looking, it's been basically in this kind of rough trading range here, going sideways for about 6 months. What is going on there?
I think there haven't been any meaningful new catalysts for the stock. The biggest event I think over the past few months for Nvidia was when Jensen went out. He talked about this $500 billion backlog, which suggests that numbers are, significantly probably better than where the street was at looking into 2026. That backlog is for both Blackwell and Rubin. And I know at CES, he did mention that that backlog continues to grow. So I think from a fundamental standpoint, everything looks on track for the stock. I think the problem, though, is so many investors are already fully allocated into Nvidia. It's hard to find that incremental buyer to really move the price. From a mega cap perspective, I would tell you this, though. At Intelligent Alpha, we use these large language models to do our stock portfolio management. And our models have really liked Amazon coming into this year. From the mega cap perspective, I think that's the one that we want to own right now.
Why,
we do own it in our GPT ETF.
Run me through that. How come?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit analogous to the Google story of mid last year, where it felt like Google was just totally washed out in the summer. All the bad news had been priced in. Search was going to die to AI. They released a new model. At that time, it was Gemini 2.5. The model was great. And then the story just turned, right? People started using Google products. They were more aggressive, putting the products into their existing user base, and the stock took off. I think Amazon's kind of similar. The stock was up about 5% last year. It was the worst performing mega cap, if I recall. And I think it's set up right now where there's no AI bid in the stock. AWS had a great quarter last quarter. If they can keep showing some acceleration on the AWS side, I think they can get an AI bid and the stock could work from here.
Doug, always great to see you. Always great to have you on the show. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Josh.